The Super Media Bros podcast is a founding member of the OddPods Media Network.
Super Media Bros.
Until I saw this movie, my life was not changed for the better. And then when I saw this movie, it was changed for the better.
I don't like to associate with people that have not seen this movie. There's a very recent episode of my podcast, Beard Al, where Russ was on talking about kind of what Weird Al means to him and his Weird Al origin stories and stuff. And he very seriously said, I don't trust people that don't like Weird Al. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good way to live life. So I also don't trust people who haven't seen this movie.
Welcome to the Super Media Bros podcast, where two best friends give comedically informative takes on movies, music, pro wrestling, and much more. I'm Richie, and Devin is not here this week. He's actually going to be taking, vacation, not from the show, but just in general. He's just doing life. So I decided to put together a damn near 4-week run of guest people coming to hang out and talk about different stuff with me. And I figured it would be a great time to integrate those guest appearances into our new Cult Cinema Saturday series, which, if you're not familiar with our show, we do have another series called Cult Cinema Showdown, where we take two cult films and stick them head to head, and they might be from the same director, the same genre, similar plots, so on and so forth. Cult Cinema Saturday is an offshoot where we will talk about movies that have either appeared on that program or ones that we haven't talked about at all because they just haven't been spoken of yet, and sometimes these movies just don't match with others. UHF has been one we've talked about before, but it's been, I think it's been 4 years, and that one was on an episode against the movie Stay Tuned, which is also a fun John Ritter film. If you haven't seen that one, go check it out. But I was not going to do this episode without someone that I just consider to be probably the biggest Weird Al fan that I have ever known in my life. And she's also a good friend of mine. Say hello to Lauren from the Beard Al podcast. What's going on?
Howdy. I'm very excited to be here. I love talking about Weird Al, and I love talking about this movie, and I love talking about it with people that I enjoy talking to. So this is kind of perfect for me.
Same here. The first time I saw this movie, I had to have been 8 or 9, and I was into movies like The Naked Gun and I'm Gonna Get You Sucker and like all these like movies that were just spoof and like Airplane, stuff like that. And then of course like Monty Python and the Holy Grail and other really just silly movies. And my dad was like, have you seen UHF? Because I was into Weird Al. I was like, no. He's like, oh, well, we're going to change that. And ever since that day, that movie has not only become one of my favorite movies, it's just a comfort watch in general, because it's easily quotable. It's severely quotable. It's a fun watch. I think even if you don't, which is weird to say this, but even if you don't listen to Weird Al, I feel like you would still find this movie utterly hilarious. Although I will admit, and even Al himself has admitted this, that the film is dated as far as like some of the references go.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like, Lauren, you and I were from the same generation of people. I feel like our generation was some of the last to actually understand a lot of the references in this movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. And and that's okay. I feel like sometimes things being dated gives people a reason to look into, well, what is this in reference to? What is this joke all about? And then learn something new. So, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, it's definitely not a bad thing. And I remember even as a child, on the music side of it, Weird Al introduced me to a lot of the original artists that he parodied, because I listened to his music and some of the stuff I didn't know. I knew he was parodying stuff, but I didn't know what it was that he was parodying. So that, and then UHF kind of doing that on the movie side of things, was really interesting. And one thing to note about UHF that I've always thought is, I thought it was cool that Al he didn't so much take a back seat, but everything else about the movie to me was the star of the film, as far as the references of like television shows and films that were being parodied. But his co-stars got so much time to shine in this movie, and that's one thing I really appreciated about it. He didn't write it to be his own personal vehicle. He got friends of his involved. He got people that he thought were funny involved. Like, I love Fran Drescher in this movie so damn much.
She's so good.
She's great, and I never understood the hate or the shit talking that happened about her in the 90s during her run on like The Nanny and other stuff, because I've always enjoyed her stuff. Michael Richards later on is a different story, but like, I loved the physical comedy that he does as Stanley in this movie. It was something that I think, like, it went above and beyond, you know?
Yeah, right. I think what you have to do with Stanley Spadowski is, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's separating the actor from the character, right? And you kind of have to do that with Victoria Jackson as well, because she's a bit of a nutball these days. But Michael Richards as Stanley Spadowski, I think that character is one of the most pure-hearted characters in all of movies. Like, he likes his mop and he likes his job. That's all there is to him. And I think one of my favorite and one of the most endearing bits about it is when George asks him to take over hosting the show because he's just had enough of everything. He's like, "Do I still get to be a janitor?" Like, he has this TV show, but he's like, "Do I still get to be a janitor?" And like, that's so sweet, you know?
Right. It is true though. And like, we won't go like, you know, bit for bit of the movie, but definitely touching on, you know, like key sequences and things like that. Stanley, yeah, he's absolutely like, the best way I can quote something that I read on the internet that was really hilarious, it was in a meme: pure of heart, dumb of ass. And I love that about him so much. And he's not necessarily a dumbass. He's just a big goof. And I love that about him. How especially
he's a little dumb.
A little bit. But I love the scene where he's chewing on the watermelon. He's like, "This is a really good water, but it tastes like poop. I'm gonna get some cornflakes." I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, he says what like every child, you know, would say at that point that's just not into fruit or vegetables just yet. And the whole free toy inside, "Don't let your mom know that you're doing this." I'm like, dude, we all freaking did that. I don't care who you are. Everybody dug inside for the free spoon or the little action figure or whatever it was that was in there. And it was just so childlike, and it was perfect for that whole Stanley Spadowski's clubhouse. It was just awesome. But getting to his run on the clubhouse was what some of the plot point of this movie entails is George Newman, who is played by Weird Al, long story short, is kind of drifting job to job because his imagination gets the best of him half the time. And he, you know, has, quote, no ambition and no drive, things like that. I beg to differ. I think he's got drive. It's just not, you know, he's just not in the correct place for those things. And he inherits, well, his uncle wins a TV station deed from a poker game that he's playing. And his aunt is like, "Hey, I think George would be great at running this." And that's pretty much getting to Al as George Newman running this UHF station, which there's a whole bunch of other shenanigans that happen throughout. But just seeing the set and everything, how they converted like this old radio tower station like to this station, going in there and like the layout of it, you can tell it was a product of 1989. You know, going out of the 80s into the 90s. It's that really oddball kind of like the TV programming that they're parodying is stuff that you can tell was on its way out anyway. I love the fact that the first scene where he walks in and Fran is sitting there. She's playing desk clerk or secretary, and she's uber pissed off that they keep getting a new station manager, which, you know, it makes you wonder how many station managers has this place gone through?
Oh yeah. It's you know, you could tell she's frustrated. She wants to be on camera. She wants to be the news lady, you know?
Yeah.
And that is so real, you know? You can do all you can do, and then new management comes in, and all that goodwill that you've built up with old management goes out the window, because then you have to prove yourself again to new guy, you know?
Yep.
So she's been promised an on-air job for a long, long time, and it just stopped happening. And then, you know, Bob and George come in, and next thing you know, she's out there in the field with her trusty cameraman, Noodles McIntosh. Don't you love the angles from Noodles?
Absolutely.
I think that's just a delightful thing.
I love Noodles McIntosh, period.
Yep.
And the scene where we get him as a camera guy when he shows up, you don't expect it. And that's what I love about Weird Al, having like the forethought to be like, what if we had a little person be the camera dude? Because you're not expecting it. So it's also like it's a good like punch line. It's a good punch line for the humor, where it's basically like a newscast odd couple right there.
Yeah. And Fran Drescher plays it so straight with him. Like, she doesn't like complain about it.
Nope.
She's just happy to be on air, and like she deals with the cameraman that she has in a very sweet way. Like, after he gets, roughed up a little bit, like she's very, very sweet to him.
Yeah, the face he makes when he comes up and he's just like holding his arm up and he got the big ass scrape. Like, which great makeup job right there on that. Like you would swear he actually like biffed it on the concrete, which that's another part of the plot is when he arrives, there's mail that had been delivered wrongly to their address that was supposed to go to Channel 8, which is the major corporate network in town. George Newman decides, hey, I'm going to make friends with these people. Waltzes over there and immediately, God, dude, RJ Fletcher is the station manager of Channel 8, who is both the most comedic villain I have seen in quite some time in any movie from this era, and also just a dick. Like, that dude is, he has like a constant bad day. That's where we get introduced to Stanley Spadowski. That's where we get introduced to his son, and along with his other, like, the trio of brown nosers in his office, basically. So George goes in there with that mail and kind of gets chewed out by RJ, and he runs into Stanley and hires him in the lobby because they rough Stanley up a little bit, take his mop from him. George hires him because they need a janitor. I say all that to go to the field report that she's doing, where Channel 8 is also there, and they are the ones that rough Noodles up and bonk him over to the ground. I'm like, God, you guys are assholes.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are. And, I think, like, Kevin McCarthy, who played RJ Fletcher, he did such a great job being such a, like, comically cartoonish villain, right? Like, he's absolutely a villain. And word on the street, like, Tales from Production says that, like, Kevin McCarthy, as soon as they would yell cut on a scene, would like bust out laughing because he thought this was the funniest thing in the world. He was having an absolute blast doing it.
And I love that you can tell. Anytime you've got an actor on set that is just chewing scenery, it does not matter if it's a serious role or anything. He plays it so straight, and it's great. So when George gets fired, I'm circling back to the beginning of this. When George gets fired from Big Edna's Burger World along with Bob, they go home. And these are some of the weirdest spots in the movie that I love the most. You get introduced to Cooney, who he runs a karate school that's next door to Al and Bob's apartment. And in the midst of Bob being very sad, Weird Al offers up the Twinkie Wiener Sandwich.
Sure does, because it's Bob's favorite.
That is Bob's favorite. And in honor of this, I know you've done it before. I haven't actually done this on air with anybody. We are going to partake in a Twinkie Wiener Sandwich. Lauren and I both have our spray cheese, our Twinkies, and our hot dog wieners ready to go.
Now, I see you have the American cheese, easy cheese.
You got cheddar?
I have cheddar.
Right on.
I have an all-beef Sabrett's hot dog.
I'm not sure which one I have. I know I have an all-beef one, but I think it's like one of those gourmet-ass like hot dogs.
All right, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I've done that. Now, do you feel like they've made that, like, Twinkies, they're getting smaller? I remember Twinkies being bigger. Like, am I wrong?
No, you're definitely not wrong. That product is getting smaller and more expensive now. Like, chips are like more than half a bag of air these days, and like hot dog wieners are like longer, thinner, and Twinkies are freaking smaller, like completely smaller.
Because I feel like my wiener is too big for this Twinkie.
Same. There's like some overhang on both sides. It's, Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to cheese this up.
Yeah, I'm going to cheese this up too, because this is going to be fantastic.
It is. I also have a glass of milk because in the movie, what happens is he's going to dunk it in milk. I'm not going to make a mess and dunk, but what I am going to do just for to make sure I'm getting the taste profile down, I'm going to take a bite and take a sip of milk while it's still in my mouth so that it happens, just so I don't make a mess in here.
Right, because that's part of the comedy of that scene is he's just casually carrying a conversation on while he's dunking it, and he just eats it nonchalantly while karate is happening next door. It's just fantastic. Let's go ahead.
It's delightful.
Yeah,
I'm going to take a picture of this just for my own posterity.
Oh yeah,
purposes.
You know what? That's a great idea. I'm going to do the same. Just because.
Yeah, you know, when you have a Weird Al podcast, like you kind of have to document it when you're eating a Twinkie Wiener Sandwich.
I'm telling you. There we go.
I'm actually, my mouth is like actually watering. I'm very excited.
Same here.
I'm like, I want to eat this so bad.
I love how many of my friends are probably going to see this like, dude, what? I'm like, yeah, just try it. Like, for real, just try it.
I know. It's like better than you think it's going to be.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh my God.
That is fantastic.
The milk adds something to it.
Actually, you know what? I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good.
I know. I'm actually going to finish this.
Oh my God. This should not be good, but it is. I bought a whole box of Twinkies and I have a bunch of hot dogs and I'm going to eat sandwiches every once in a while.
Dude, do it like a whole party tray.
They make mini Twinkies. I saw them at the store. They're like mini, like little things. And I can get those cocktail wieners.
Yes.
And I'll do Twinkie Wiener hors d'oeuvre.
Yep. And then just dab them like each with like a
dollop of cheese.
And serve it with like a little shot glass of milk.
Or shot glass of milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so wrong.
But
it's
so
right.
Mm-hmm. So it's not the only weird food that happens in this movie. I say weird food, weird things involving food. There's conversations about food. There's the wheel of fish. There's.
Did you know that there's actual fish in that studio on that wheel?
Yes.
And it was hot in there.
Yes.
That room smelled. I watched the wheel of fish scene of that movie, and I'm like, it stunk so bad in there.
I would have thrown up because.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing I'm never nose blind to. Ever. So I would have absolutely thrown up during that scene.
Yep.
So going from the Twinkie Wiener Sandwich, there are some hilarious bits throughout the movie that are visual gag funnies, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place during that scene. One of the first ones that I love so much is both a running gag and a visual gag. The dudes that are flying out of the karate studio to the ground, and Cooney is just yelling, "Stupid!" at every one of his new recruits. And when George, I keep wanting to call him Al. When George,
I know.
Right. When George asks what time it is, because he forgets that, oh no, he was supposed to go to Terry's for dinner, his girlfriend.
Uh-huh.
A whole arm busts through the wall with a watch and everything. It's just 7:30. I love it. That's my kind of humor.
And a lot of it happens so fast. You know, a lot of it's like blink or you'll miss it, like visual gags.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie is perfect. And it makes me a little sad that this movie made Weird Al as sad as it did because of the reception that it got, because of when it got released and like what it was up against. Because it was a big, the blockbuster summer of 1989. Like it was up against so much. And like this could not compete with a Batman. Like there was no way, because it's a totally different thing. I said something at work the other day that like this is like comparing oranges, bacon, and asparagus. Like that's like they're different things. It's not even apples and oranges. It's not even that close, right? But this is perfect for what it is, and it's like that old adage: like if a fish is graded on its ability to fly, then it's going to think it's terrible at everything, right? But that's not what it's meant for. And this movie was not meant to be a summer blockbuster movie. I think ultimately this movie was meant to be like kind of the cult sleeper thing that it is, because there is so much to be gained and appreciated from it based on multiple viewings, right? Like this is not something you're not going to get everything the first time you see it. You're not going to get everything the 100th time you see it. I have seen this movie, I don't even know how many times, and I guarantee there are jokes in it that I'm going to go, oh my God, I just noticed that.
Same here. And that was what I was actually going to get to is going to, well, yeah, no, we're on the same page. And I think that's fantastic because, like, you know, and watching it for the last few days, like, you just, you know, at least once a day, I'm like, oh my God, that. I would find myself pausing just to look at like some of the visual gags, like when Conan the Librarian splits old boy in half. That's one of the funniest damn things ever because you expect it, but you don't. Because like they'll have intercut scenes of the television programming, they're commercials of all of the just random TV shows that are being put on U62, and it's stuff like, you know, from pranks, you know, like, you know, and Bowling for Burgers, and then you get commercials for movies like Gandhi 2, which is you know, a whole ass parody of like Shaft and like the action movies from that era, and then you get Conan the Librarian, where this dude is like, these books are a little overdue, and without missing a beat, and we were talking about how quick the humor is, like without missing a beat, the edit cuts right to him just swinging this giant sword down and splitting this guy, comically splitting this dude clean in half. And it's just the funniest visual gag ever. I'll never forget.
Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
I love it. And at one point, I didn't realize this until today, because I actually went to look at the Rambo parody towards the end of the film. Sylvester Stallone had committed to doing a cameo in this and backed out at the last minute, supposedly.
Yeah, that's why Weird Al had to wear that weird muscle suit, which is funny in its own way. That's almost funnier. I think that is funnier than if it had actually been Sylvester Stallone doing it. You know, there's just too much. I love it. I think, you know, the way he does that is so funny. I'm trying to. There's one that I don't remember what it is, but you know what? This works. Oh no, actually it is here. I was trying to look up the like images of the schedule behind George when they're in the room, like trying to get to put everything together, because like that is worth pausing and like reading most of them. But the two that are popping up right here, obviously, like you've got Town Talk with George, which is a great little bit in and of itself. And I love everything they do with that bit of the show because it is a perfect send up of a lot of the sensationalist talk shows of the time, which I think are like the precursor to what reality TV would become. But anyway, The World of Phlegm and The Young and the Dyslexic. I think it was that stain.
There's that way, and then there's also oh my God, it was something to do with bestiality, and I was like, oh my God, I've never noticed that one before. It's on like the Sunday block at like 10 at night. I was dying.
It's crazy pants.
Yeah, and I also noticed, I was like, man, Stanley doesn't get a day off. He's like 7 days a week. He's full on janitor and doing his show 7 days a week. It's crazy.
That's what he wants to do.
Yeah, I love that. Just like the whole Town Talk bit is because when you were talking about like the talk shows, it was, I think, like Geraldo and Donahue, I think, were the two that he was like really kind of doing on that one.
Yeah, pretty much.
And just, I have quoted the lesbian Nazi hookers abducted by UFOs and forced into weight loss programs bit so many times because it's the funniest shit I have ever listened to come out of his mouth. Like, seriously. And then just getting obliterated with a chair at the ass end of it. It's just, all right. Perfect.
I know. And then the next, like, the next promo for it, he's got, like, the bandages all over his face. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry about Town Talk, but it's so funny. I love all of it. And I think what is great about this, too, is that, you know, Weird Al, for all he is, he definitely made himself more the straight man in this movie than anything else.
Absolutely.
His character, anyway. Like, George is the straight man. Right. And I think that's wonderful. Because it's unexpected. Because like you were alluding to earlier, letting his castmates shine in their own way. I like the bit with Bob when he's Bobbo the Clown, when he accidentally eats the dog treats.
Yes.
Like, that's hilarious. Well, at least he's cold, you know, it's great.
That scene is great to me in a multitude of ways. Just the how he was responding by blowing that giant damn horn, and then when he gets hit with the frying pan and he gets back up, it was just a real, just quick, low, just honk of the horn, real subtle. That's the humor that speaks to me so much, and I think all those guys, they play that so well. Al has a couple of physical humor bits that cracked me up. Like there was one in the beginning where they're doing the Indiana Jones parody where he's going after the Oscar in the temple.
At the beginning. Yeah.
And I point this out every time because it's so hilarious to me. A falling rock hitting you in the head in a movie, any other movie would kill you or take you out. Like especially the boulder-esque size of the one that clunks him on top of the head. But it's Weird Al and it's supposed to be funny. So he turns around and looks and you just hear it connect with his head and you just hear he just stumbles off like it's nothing. Like that's like it's so stupid. I love it so much.
It's great. And I think what's great about that too is like that's what opens the movie, and that's the daydream that gets him fired, that starts the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's the perfect way to set the stage for what's coming.
Yeah.
And can we talk a little bit about Philo?
I would love to talk about Philo. He's one of my favorite characters in this movie.
He's an absolute delight. Did you know? I'm sure you did, you know, you being who you are and stuff, that the claymation artist that did Philo in UHF is the same claymation artist that did Large Marge in Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
I did, and I thought that was fascinating. And you can, like, I know this sounds strange to say that, like, you can tell a claymation artist's style, but
yeah,
it's so apparent, especially at the just seeing it at the end. I loved it. And as a child, you know, having seen Al's videos before UHF, I had seen his video where he did Jurassic Park. And I was like, oh, they're doing more claymation. You know, I thought it was cool that they did more claymation in like this movie. But Philo is like, I would watch Secrets of the Universe.
Oh,
like,
I totally would too. And what I think is the most interesting is Anthony Gary, who played Philo. He was Luke on General Hospital, one half of Luke and Laura, which is like the most watched soap opera wedding like of all time. He literally did this because he's like, well, I think that'll be an amusing thing to do. And there were other people that were in line to play Philo. Oh, Philo's role was written with Joel Hodgkin in mind. Building on his stand-up routines. He, you know, the guy he was working on Mystery Science Theater 3000. They approached Kristen Glover, but he said that he only wanted to play a used car salesman and no other part, so he turned it down, which is a very Crispin Glover thing to do in the late 80s.
Right.
And Anthony Geary, he wanted to perform the role both as a fan of Weird Al Yankovic and seeing the role as completely opposite from his normal acting. And I'm like, yeah, and he did an absolute bang-up job with it. And if you ever have a chance, like seriously, look up like who could have played what in this movie, because Jerry Seinfeld was considered for the role of Bob.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, I can't picture it. I cannot picture it by being anybody else.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Terry could have been Jennifer Tilly or Ellen DeGeneres.
Wow, that would have been nuts.
Right?
Wow, I could see Jennifer Tilly only because like the voices kind of, you know, check out there, like, you know, the tonal quality, like that matches. So I might would have bought into that, but dude, it's odd to, you know, for me to picture anybody else playing any of these people. So yeah, especially scenes where you write with somebody in mind who like Emo Phillips, like who the hell else are you gonna get to do that shop teacher bit? Like nobody.
That he was in that because like he's friends with Weird Al, but right. that bit is so great. Call me Mr. Butterfingers. Oh no, I've done it again. It's so funny, and blood's like spraying everywhere, and George doesn't know what to do. That part is. Emo Phillips is in that movie for like less than 5 minutes, and it's one of the most memorable bits in the film.
Right. There's clips of that scene specifically on YouTube, just by itself because it's that funny. And just the facial expressions and the mocking he does whenever he forgets what a table saw is, and you just hear George table saw, and he just looks at him.
Like you know more than I do. It's so great. And, you know, like, Emo Phillips is so perfect for that. Like, because he opened up for Weird Al on both iterations of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour. So I've seen Emo Phillips perform stand-up 3 times. And he doesn't lean on the fact that, like, he doesn't lean on the UHF thing or anything like that. He does his own shtick right there, and he's so funny. He's so funny. But yeah, nobody else could do that. And it's clear, like, his humor, his brand of humor, and Weird Al's brand of humor, they're not the same, but they're the same flavor of weird.
But that's what works for them. And
yeah,
that was my first time seeing it. Like, Emo Phillips was a giant bucket list for a friend of mine. And I, like, when we went to go see them here in Lafayette, which is a town, about an hour from where I'm at. When we went to go see that tour, and I found out he was opening, I was like, oh my God, dude, we're going to get to see freaking Emo Phillips too. This is great. And he didn't disappoint, like, at all. Like, I never expected him to, but I'm just like, God, he's still just as funny as he was, and his humor still translates, 30 years after the fact. Yeah,
he comes out with that the weird pants and that haircut.
Yep.
And he's just like, yep, I'm going to do the thing. So we were staying at the hotel down the street. And what do you know? And it's
his cadence is what gets me every time.
It's true, because you don't expect what's coming from it. Like, anytime he could literally say, so I bought a giraffe and I took it home and realized my ceilings were too low. And like, that's it. I literally just made up a sentence and said it like Emo Phillips would, but like somehow it's funnier.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's exactly how you would deliver it too. I mean, punchline and all. It's good stuff. And speaking of like punchlines, some of the stuff in this movie, I've shown this to people and they get it, and then I've shown this to people and they're like, what is this? Like, one of my favorite things in this is Spatula City. It is the most
Spatula City.
It is the most, like, how can you not like know that this is so just on the nose? Like, there's nothing else to it other than it's just a store full of spatulas. And then the dude just like, it's like, I love the spatulas so much, I bought the company. Like, who
so
does
great.
This?
It's such a send up of the hair club for men guy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what it is. And I mean, that bit is so great, and this past Valentine's Day, so like we weren't married yet, but when Russ was still my fiance, I went into the kitchen and I grabbed every single spatula and I put them together with like a ribbon around it, like a bouquet.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, how to say I love you with the gift of a spatula. And then he was like, no, I'm going to take your picture holding that bouquet of spatulas. Like, I'm like, okay. Like, that's how like, it's like, oh, my person gets this. This is funny.
Right.
Again, because I don't trust people that don't get this.
Right. And I kind of use that as a measuring stick, if you will, for, okay, are you on my level humor wise, or are you just a stick in the mud? Like, really? Because like, how do you not love this movie?
I know.
And the fact that this movie took forever to actually get I would say a wide release. I think a better way to put it would be availability and accessibility, because it wasn't until like 2002 that it actually hit DVD. And the VHS copies of this movie were completely out of print or rare or very expensive by the time that happened, which I guess, like, for the time, like, it didn't do well at the box office. It didn't, it didn't catch on like it probably should have at the time. But like we mentioned earlier, it was a sleeper hit and it found its way on home video, which I feel like if they would have pushed it on home video a little more than they did probably in the first decade that it was out. And I mean, it's not that it didn't do bad like later on. Like, we're sitting here talking about a movie that's like over 30 years old. But
yeah,
I think it would have caught on during the time that it should have caught on, because I feel like it would have been much more appreciated than it already is now.
Hey, I'm Pantsless Aaron from the BFYTW podcast, here with my buddy Stevie.
Hey, what's up?
And Augie.
Hey.
And we're here to, first of all, categorically deny the rumors going around that all we've been doing lately is copying other podcasts. This is categorically untrue, and we deny it completely. Having said that, please enjoy the rest of the Super Media Brothers podcast. And when you're done with that, feel free to check out our new project, Ultra Telecommunications Siblings, a show where best friends give informatively comedic takes on music, gaming, pro wrestling, movies, and more. Pretty sure that's never been done before.
I'm not going to totally derail into talking about a different movie, but I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't make some connection between this and Weird, the Al Yankovic story that was streaming exclusively on the Roku channel, right?
Yep.
Because I think in 1989, Weird Al and his people put this beautiful baby nugget of joy out into a world full of giant blockbuster monsters. And it was the tiniest little fish in the biggest ocean, right? And that doesn't mean it's a bad tiny little fish. It just means it is a tiny little fish. So I think, 35, nearly 40 years later, when it came time for Weird Al to say, like, you know what, I'm kind of over the hurt of UHF and how it was received initially, when it came time for him to do this biopic that we all have wanted to see since the Funny or Die sketch came out in 2010, right? When it came time for that to actually happen, I think the logical thing was you can't do straight to video these days, but it went straight to a streaming service, and that was the thing for him to do. Like, now, do I wish that that Weird the Al Yankovic story got a limited theatrical release so it could have been eligible for Academy Awards? Absolutely. But am I mad that it's basically cleaning up in all of the places that it's eligible to clean up in? No. See, that's the thing. Instead of being a tiny, tiny fish in the ocean with the Weird Al Yankovic story, quote unquote, biopic, Weird Al positioned himself to be a giant fish in a smaller pond. And I feel like that's him saying, once bitten, twice shy. I'm going to do this the way that, it's not going to be a blockbuster, but I'm going to kick ass where I can.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that this would have done as well theatrically, because it's like it would, but I don't think I don't think he would want to experience that again. Which this was smart because we're living in an age where people want to be able to watch stuff at their convenience. They don't want to have to do too much by the way of getting to and from. Like, even I have not gone to theaters as much as I used to. And it's mostly to do with the fact that there's so much content that Devin and I do on this show where I'm focusing on most of that content to get done. And I just, I do watch movies for my own enjoyment, but I really did sit the other day and I was like, man, when's the last time I went to a movie that wasn't for a podcast? Or when's the last time that I went to a movie just for the hell of it?
Purely for fun.
Yeah, and it's been a long time. And that's not to say that I don't want to do it or I can't do it. It's just like, it's the way that I'm kind of wired now. I work 50 hours, 50 plus hours a week, and I come home and I do this, and that's not including the time I spend with my girlfriend and my son, and other things I like to do. But, to kind of put it back to topic, UHF has been a comfort watch in a lot of those times for me.
And I'm glad you're doing this. I'm like, this week can't be too much work for you, right? Because you got to do something that was fun and funny. Like, I've got a UHF poster right behind me, and there's another one on the door to this room. The one on the door to this room is huge, by the way, and it's from the Australian release of UHF, where it was called The Vidiot from UHF. And it's a really cool poster. It was a Secret Santa gift from a coworker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's huge. And I was like, man, don't you like? This is one of those things. I've made this point before, but like, I have no problem being very loud about the things that I'm passionate about, and Weird Al being like one of the chief things among them, to the point where people know me enough that in my women's group at work, when we did our Secret Santa, the woman who got me, who kind of barely knows me, but knows enough of me, was like, I'm just going to get this giant Weird Al poster for her and hope that's fine. And I'm like, that's more than fine.
Right.
I crushed it 2 years in a row with my workplace Secret Santa. I got that this past year, and the year before that, my Secret Santa got me the cheese sandwich My Little Pony, which is the My Little Pony that Weird Al voiced. And so I've got the figure of that. And I was like, man, you see, this is what happens when you don't hide your bliss, you know?
Right.
You're like, no, this is the thing that brings me joy. And I'm just going to let you know. And then people are like, they put you in that file in their brain and they remember it. And then they by proxy kind of remember you, you know? There's no reason to not be excited about the stuff that makes you excited.
For sure. I was telling somebody the other day that I don't have guilty pleasures when it comes to music or film, like at all.
Or anything.
Because, again, another sidebar, Aqua is going on tour in the United States for the first time in I don't know how long. They're from Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah, they haven't been. They've been relevant because obviously they get called a one-hit wonder a lot. Which weirdly enough, they have more than just Barbie Girl as a single. But I love that first album and their second one a lot. I like a lot of the other songs. And when I found out they were going on tour, I made a post about it on my social media accounts. I was like, catch me in New Orleans. I don't give a shit. I will be there, like on the floor, trying to make my way to the front of the stage because that was a bucket list act for me. The same way that when Weird Al did his tour, which for me, my first time seeing Al was on his Ill-Advised Vanity tour. And it was just like, you know, somebody was like, well, aren't you gonna like miss having like the experience of like the parodies? I was like, no, I want to see the guy on stage that's doing this shit. I love all his stuff. His stuff is fantastic. I will support him musically. I will support him in film. I will support that dude in whatever he does because he is such a beacon of passionately happy, just projects and just a happy human being and just a goddamn ray of sunshine, honestly. And we need that. We need more people like him.
We sure do. And can I plug something very small on your show to see maybe your listeners would want to do it?
Yeah.
So we're doing something on Beard Al Podcast that we've done before. And this request is directed to your audience and also to you, Richie, because what you just said, I was like, yes. I'm putting together another clip episode from people sending me 30-second to 3-minute clips, basically talking about what Weird Al means to you. And I'm going to put it together into a big clip episode coming out at the end of October. So I need people's submissions by October 10th. So you could just email that to beerdalpodcast@gmail.com. And we've got a great team of folks here on the OddPods Media Network that are going to help me edit it and make it sound good. So don't worry if you don't have good sound equipment. Even if you just record it on your phone, we'll polish it up and put it together and it'll come out sounding nice and lovely. And all I'm going to say is the last time I did an episode like this, the man himself listened to it and acknowledged that it was there. So I know he heard it. So if you have something that you actually want him to hear, this is the episode that you want to get on. So you have until October 10th to get that emailed to me at beerdalpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you want to show up to if you want to scroll to the show notes below, I'm going to put all of that information there to make it as easy as possible.
Thank you, Richie.
Absolutely. I like making it easy because like.
But Richie, I want you to send one. I want you to send me one.
Oh, absolutely.
No, okay.
100% will.
Hooray and huzzah.
So in jumping back into the movie, there is a scene where Stanley Spadowski is he is kidnapped, and this is towards the tail end of the movie where Harvey Bilczek, who is George's uncle, is in a bind because he owes money on a bet that he lost. So
can we just? There's something illogical about the way that whole bet worked out.
Right.
Can we just say like that's not how betting works the way that it works in this movie?
No.
But we choose to ignore that and we move on. Anyway, I just needed to point that out. Like
for sure.
There's no way that would happen that way.
No, but I think the way they were trying to play it is that the dude that he owed money to was like a mafia guy or something, because it's like, okay, the dude is missing his damn hand, and when he's threatening Harvey over the phone, he takes his fake hand off and puts a friggin' meat cleaver on and just chops this giant like log of bologna on him.
It's like, what? This is so weird.
Yeah, I mean, look what we're watching. Yeah, exactly. Like, look what we're watching. And when he does that, I'm like, oh my God, is this really where we're going with this? But that's part. That's crucial to the plot because this is a way for R.J. Fletcher to kind of stomp out U62 because I don't think that he had heard of it, but he pretty much called and was just going to buy the station. And, you don't really need to hear it spelled out right to know that, of course, Harvey Bilchik is going to take him up on this offer because he doesn't want to owe this dude what I would consider this is an Evil Dead reference for those out there. He doesn't want Evil Ash, who's missing a limb that has a sharp object attached to the end of it, coming after him for $75,000, which is a shitload of money. And so he flies out to meet with RJ to broker this deal, but not before George calls his aunt and lets her know what's happening. And she does the right thing and chews him out and is like, man, give George a chance to do this. And we get the whole U62 telethon in order to raise money, which this is where Spadowski winds up getting kidnapped. And we get a lot of really hilarious, this leads into the whole Rambo skit, but this also leads into one of my favorite wordplay jokes ever. And it's when Cooney and his karate people show up. And they're hiding in a supply closet. And of course, they do a whole play on the word surprise. And it's just they yell supplies and they jump out of the closet and commence to kicking the crap out of these guys. And
yeah, I've got the T-shirt of that. I have it's Cooney doing a karate jump. It's stylized, but it says supplies on it. And I enjoy it. That's one of my favorite shirts. It's the most comfortable and the most comfortable Weird Al shirts to have. So I wear it a lot.
I would too. I honestly need to get more stuff like that. I've got, shirts galore of pop culture stuff, but I would love more of Al's references and, stuff like that. And that being one of them, because I think Getty Watanabe is hilarious. And he was a staple of 80s cinema as well. He was in 16 Candles. But I remembered seeing him in this first, before I ever watched or knew what 16 Candles was. He was Cooney. And he still is Cooney. Yeah, he's always going to be Cooney for me. And I love it so much. And he's got some of the best bits in this movie with that. And then being the host of Wheel of Fish.
Weaver!
Are you Weaver? She's like, yeah. It's all right. I crack up every time the choice for her. When she wins, she's going to win a red snapper, which is very tasty. But she's also got a choice of either taking the red snapper or choosing what is in the box that Hiro-san is bringing down right now. And you just had to know going in that she's about to get duped real bad here. She takes the box and there's what's in the box? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Stupid. I remember that being the funniest damn thing as a kid. Just him yelling stupid at somebody for failing miserably or getting tossed out of a second story window, for God's sake. He's got some of the best bits in this one, and there was another one I was gonna bring up in terms of some of the characters having bits like that.
I know you want to talk about Raul.
That is exactly who I wanted to talk about.
The movie is dedicated to Trinidad Silva, who played Raul because he unfortunately passed away before the movie wrapped. We were owed more Raul in UHF. Yeah. There was more. There was stuff for him to do at the telethon. There was things that were going to be buttoned up with his character. But unfortunately, a drunk driver took Trinidad Silva away from us during the filming of this movie. But what we do get from him in this film is absolute gold. And he should be proud that he left us with this, because turtles are nature's suction cup.
Watch this. Throws it up.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. That is one of the most incredibly natural comedic things. Performances, bits, whatever you want to call it, about this film. And he's one of the reasons this movie earned a PG-13 rating. It's the table saw scene and him throwing the poodles out the window.
Today we're going to teach poodles how to fly. And one of the other bits, the absolute lengths that they went to, it was painstaking lengths to get the badgers. Badgers, we don't need no stinking badgers joke off the ground. Like there was at least 2 minutes of setup for that joke where it's like, where are they going with this? Just for that line. And I think that's great because it's a line that everybody knows, but like, what's it from? Like that's a thing. Badges, we don't need no stinking badges.
It's great.
Like that's a thing from like a 50s movie, something about the Sierra Madre or whatever. I don't even remember, but I just know that it's this. And they made a joke about like a 50s B movie and they spent 2 minutes setting it up. And it's so freaking memorable that I'm just like, ugh, it's so great.
And I think in that same scene, I could be wrong, but cutting from like him throwing the poodles out the window, there's a pile of dogs on the ground. There's just a freaking pile. And I don't mean it like small. I'm not exaggerating. There like it is a mountainous looking pile of poodles just on the ground, same spot. He's like, oh, they said they never get it right on the first try.
That's right.
But I keep forgetting though, during the scene where he's being delivered the badgers and all the other animals, I keep forgetting to like look in the yard to see if the dogs are still piled up in the yard.
Oh no, I need to look.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about it. And I just, thought about it. I was like, oh my God, I need to check this out just on just another watch one day. I'm like, just
give it another watch.
Attention to detail.
And there's so much of that in this. I'm a firm believer in the fact that Weird Al doesn't half-ass anything.
Yep.
So nothing is a mistake. Nothing is done by accident. And I absolute brilliant genius.
For sure. And the movie winds up concluding with Stanley Spadowski obviously being rescued via supplies and a Rambo sequence where they go back and they wind up earning the rest of the money from a homeless gentleman who has asked for change from Al George throughout the entirety of this film. And he winds up getting a penny from R.J. Fletcher, who gave him a penny just to be a complete dick. And it turns out that this penny was worth a lot of money, and he winds up buying the rest of the shares of the TV station, which puts them over the $75,000 mark to...
Hey, mister.
Yeah. 97,
you got
98, 99, $1.
Here you go. You got any change?
Change. I love it so much. And that was another person that they didn't have who wound up playing him in mind, but he wound up being the best pick for this.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, couldn't picture anybody else doing it. But he gets, them over the goal. And they get the TV station back. R.J. Fletcher is both fired from Channel 8 and has his license revoked. Great turn of events. And I love that.
It's so great.
I love that Pamela Finkelstein is right there to get it on the news. And then you find out that Philo is an alien who's just been hanging out.
It tracks. It makes sense.
Yeah. And everybody has a happy ending. And then they do like this really like Gone with the Wind-esque style.
Oh my God, with him and Terry, I know.
Yes, I love it so much. And I mean, and the movie ends, with that, final kiss in the spotlight and like they have a whole costume change and everything. But there's one bit that I didn't like mention that I thought was funny. It was just like a little small visual gag that I wanted to mention like before we hop off of here. The scene where the blind dude is playing Rubik's Cube on the bench. Is this it? Nope.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Is this it? Nope. Oh my God. Yeah. There's so much. I love the bit at the very beginning. If we're just going to bring up like little tiny things that we just think are funny throughout it. The bit at the beginning when Al's at the party where his aunt and uncle, where he gets the TV station,
yes,
where he's talking to somebody, they call him over, he just puts the poodle in the punch bowl.
Yes, he just drops a dog right in it.
It's like, and then they cut away from it, and you're like, okay, but what's happening? This is,
the way he's trying to feed him with the ladle, make him take a sip with the ladle, and he's like, George, come over here. Oh, sploosh.
Okay, yeah, just put the poodle in the punch bowl. Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, like they're just kind of going balls out with everything. Let's just throw a poodle in a punch bowl. And what kills me is that part of me wants to think that like Al did that both like maybe he planned to put the dog somewhere, because I feel like they had to probably clear that with the Humane Society to put him in a punch bowl. But I also
not 1989,
right? But like that's what I was getting at. I also feel like Al was like, I'm just gonna improv this and just throw this dog in a fucking punch bowl, and it's like, boom, there it is, like right there.
Yeah.
It's just.
I mean, I bet it was his poodle.
Probably so. So I hope it was his dog.
Right?
He's like, I don't trust you.
The dog on the cover of Poodle Hat was his poodle, and I know that's probably not the same dog, but the man has a track record for having poodles, so
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's good stuff, though. Was there anything else you wanted to point out about this before we bounced? Or?
No, I think we did a very good job. I'm just very happy I had a reason to get more Twinkie Wiener Sandwich supplies, because now I can have Twinkie Wiener Sandwiches whenever I want. And my dogs are going to be very happy that I've got a can of Easy Cheese.
Oh, that's right.
Because they will reap the benefits of this as well.
You stick it on their treats?
I might stick it on my feet and let them lick them.
Yes.
Don't knock it. Like, you get a dog that's like, I like a good foot lick, and like its dog will do it.
Yeah, it's like, a little lick will go a long way there, buddy.
Yeah, you get it like right there, like on the arch of my foot, and they'll just.
And from then on, I never had to purchase soap for my feet ever again.
I know, they're just so clean.
Love it.
It's exfoliating with those rough tongues. Who needs a pedicure when you got a dog and Easy Cheese?
No, it's a pet-icure. That's exactly. Thank you.
Well done.
Come back to Super Media Bros for more wordplay every damn week that we're on here. So this is good stuff. I try. Yeah, if anybody out there hasn't seen this, which I implore you, if you haven't seen UHF, it is on YouTube for absolutely free. It is like, when I say YouTube, I mean it is like on YouTube Movies for free. Like they have it on there for you to watch and stream. Do it. Buy a copy. It's worth buying and owning, putting in your collection. I know Scream Factory did a re-release of it not too long ago. I would love this movie, and we talk about cult films a lot on this show. I would love for this movie to have I call it like the Arrow Video or Vinegar Syndrome treatment, where these companies that do restoration of films, they will go back and they will take the original negatives and they will get with the actual filmmakers and they will restore it from those negatives to a 4K scan. And then they will include a bunch of updated special features with cast and crew that are still living or otherwise, archival stuff that hasn't been released. I would love for UHF to get like a 35th anniversary release like this, because we're coming up on it.
That would be next year, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I would love to see that happen. It deserves it, honestly.
It does, and I feel like, Weird Al's in a place with his career where, like, I know we're not going to get any new music, but I like what he's doing. He's still giving us little gifts, and so I think that's a good little gift. Something to, especially since Weird, the Al Yankovic story has been so successful, I think he should turn around and make something happen with his first little movie baby. Well, it's not even his first little movie baby, his second little movie baby. And, see what goes, because of course you can't ignore 1985's The Complete Al mockumentary.
Chef's kiss, honestly. That is a fantastic mockumentary style.
Oh my
series.
God, it's so good. It's so good.
I
am yet to do a full episode of my podcast about The Complete Al. I've gone on other shows and talked about it. But I need to make that happen pretty soon because it is pretty darn near perfect.
Absolutely.
As is everything Weird Al does.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. That's like that's going to go on my tombstone. Everything Weird Al did was perfect. She loved it.
She's not wrong. Like literally like at the bottom, she's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
she dead ass ain't wrong. Like just on there. Yeah, exactly. So if anybody out there hasn't heard of or hasn't listened to Lauren's podcast, why don't you give them the sales pitch? Like even if this episode hasn't been enough of a sales pitch, I want you to give them your pitch to come hang out with you, because you do an excellent job. Even when your brother John is on, because every time he's not on, it's a special thing. It's very special.
It's a very special episode every time my brother's not on. Yeah. So the Beard Al podcast is the podcast where we talk about two of the greatest things in the world, beer and Weird Al. And our general basic episodes are my brother John and I will pair a craft beer with a Weird Al song, like one might pair a fine wine with a meal. We try and make some connections with like either the title of the beer or the style of the beer or the brewery or something that kind of goes along with the song that we're talking about. And sometimes we're very on the nose. Sometimes we're like, this is a stretch, but we're going to make it work. We have a good time either way. And John is usually on the show every other week because he is a busy dad with, now 2 young children. So in the weeks that John's not on, I have guests, much like Richie, who's been on the show several times. My husband Russ is on the show quite a bit, and then like just other people from the podcast community come on and we do stuff. I do different series on the show. Right now we're doing where people are coming on to talk about what they think is the most underrated track on a particular Weird Al album. We've done general album overview episodes. We've done where it's things where people rank the tracks on a Weird Al album from their least favorite to most favorite. And I'm starting a new series, which is going to be a spinoff of the aforementioned clip show that's going to come out later in October, where people are going to come and sit with me and have full-on episode conversations about what Weird Al means to them. Because I know there are some people for whom a Weird Al conversation cannot be contained within 3 minutes. So they can come on and have that conversation with me. And I think that's it. Oh yeah, you can find us, beerdalpodcast.com, or, since we're on OddPods Media here with Super Media Bros, just go to oddpodsmedia.com and click the link to us there. We're also at Beard Al Podcast on Twitter, and I'm not going to ever stop calling it Twitter, Instagram, and also Facebook.
Lauren, thank you so very much for coming to hang out with me.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime you want to come talk about anything like that's not Weird Al, feel free.
I love doing that too.
I know.
I'm good at that also.
Yeah. Listen to supermediabrospodcast.com for past, present, and future episodes. Check out all the other shows, including Beard Al Podcast, on the OddPods Media Network. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Follow us on our social medias. All of it is in the show notes below. You can leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Podchaser, GoodPods, and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to leave us a voicemail, go to our website, and there is a little orange tab on the right. You can just click it, and you can record it on your phone. You can record it on your desktop. I don't care. Just come holler at us. We'll feature you on the show. It's good stuff. Lauren, once again, thank you so very much for hanging out and doing this. Let's get together and do some more stuff in the future. 2024 is looking pretty freed up after like the first of the year. So.
Hooray! Yes, yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Come back next week. I'm actually going to be having your husband, Russ, from the Infectious Groove Music YouTube channel on to talk about Who's That Girl starring Madonna. Yeah, we have not had anything Madonna related on this podcast since its inception, and I think it's time to do that.
I think it is time, and I'm just going to editorialize very briefly here at the beginning. Russ showed me that movie for the first time probably about a year ago, and I loved it, and I thought it was great, so I think you're going to have a wonderful conversation.
Oh, absolutely, and because I love Madonna. I love her music so much. Looking at me, you probably wouldn't be able to tell. I know you know this, but people that don't know me would look at me and be like, oh, you listen to freaking metal and shit, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I totally do, but I love Madonna. I love 80s pop music so much. Yeah, damn right I'm allowed. And I'm loud. So there's also that. But yeah, come back next week for that. And then after that, join us again when my boy Stevie from the Because Fuck You, That's Why podcast comes on to hang out with me to talk about the Kevin Smith film Mallrats.
Oh,
yeah.
You have a string of OddPods guests. I love it.
Absolutely. That was the entire idea. So
that's what the network is for. We're delightful people.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. All right, we're going to go ahead and bounce out of here. Again, this has been Cult Cinema Saturday, UHF, featuring Lauren from the Beard Al Podcast, episode 292. Until next week, I've been Richie, and this has been Lauren.
Yay!
Shades on. We're off.